of Media Director at the Shipyard, and I'm Shen, VP of our Zeta Collab. And we're really excited today to really extend the conversation that we started at Zeta Next in Chicago. So at Zeta Next in Chicago, if you guys were able to join us there, we talked about our answers framework and how we're completely shifting how we're able to create solutions that really connect intelligence all the way to actions and make it more actionable and more direct. So Chrystie was, of course, in our audience that day, and I kept looking at her because we had certain ones that we wanted to talk about where there was examples that we wanted to bring to life, and today we're actually able to do that together, so I'm super excited for that. So when we talked about the answers framework, there's 4 key pillars around it. There's predictability, profitability, productivity, and performance. What we did at Zeta Next in Chicago is that we zoomed in into particular areas of what are the types of answers and the questions that are most impactful for the brands that we support today, especially around predictability. So what we wanted to do today is talk about some of the really cool work that we're doing with the Shipyard, Chrystie and her team up front, and then where we focus on circles of influence, being able to understand who those impactful circles are, your friends, your family, and colleagues that oftentimes impact your decision making. And then we'll also talk a little bit about leading indicators, an AI-powered solution that looks at early on indicators before you make certain decisions. So to set the stage for us today, Chrystie, I'd love to talk about how you guys came about to working with Jobs Ohio. What are some of the unique challenges that you guys have with them?
Sure. Thanks, Winnie. So Jobs Ohio is the economic development engine for the state of Ohio, and their goal is really to showcase Ohio as a destination for both businesses and for talent. And our goal is to help them attract both those businesses and talent in a really competitive national landscape. And what we're going to talk about specifically today is more on the talent side and the talent attraction campaign. We from a media perspective, our goal there is to reach people who aren't necessarily thinking about moving to Ohio or thinking about Ohio as a possible destination for their family, their life, and their career. And we want to help them see themselves there. So, but what we realized really quickly was that our target audience wasn't just that person in that potential career. If someone's making a move, there's a lot of people that are part of that decision. And so in talking with Zeta and trying to identify how do we target those influencers around them, circles of influence became an opportunity that we wanted to take advantage of. We had 71 specific career titles for the people we're trying to reach. And in order to both scale and, again, help people and influence those decisions, we wanted to also reach, again, those people in their inner circle, their family, their friends, their peers, their coworkers, and help them, encourage them to ultimately make the decision to move to Ohio.
Yeah. And that was something that you guys had actually talked with Jobs Ohio about, right? Like a discussion about, well, how are we going to influence that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of times, it's easy to identify a very specific audience, but how do we talk to all of those other people that are part of that decision? And in this case, a very big decision of, picking up and moving, potentially across the country to identify, there's a lot of things that you think about, obviously, when you make that move, and a lot of decisions that have to be made, not only for that person in identifying that there's a career for them, but their partner. Is there a career for them as well, if that's what they want? What are the schools like? What is the economy like? All of those kinds of things become part of that decision that we needed to make sure we were showcasing Ohio across to both of those audiences for us.
Absolutely. And it was very cool because I remember us bringing up the concept and the idea. And then into phase 2, we're like, well, let's test it out. Let's see if we can make it happen.
Yeah.
So we were particularly excited that you guys were like our first clients to really test out the methodology and really see what the results look like. So to share with the group what our goal was and what our methodology was, is that as Chrystie was talking about, there's a very specific audience and individuals what we're trying to target, that core group that have fulfillment on certain types of titles that are the types of ideal individuals that we want to bring in. Within that core group, about 40% of them, just under that, 39%, we were able to identify a circle of influence for, meaning we could find a family member, a friend, or a colleague that could ideally influence that individual. So what we did is we engaged both the core groups, the group that didn't have a circle of influence, along with the group that did have a circle of influence, along with the family, the friends, and the colleagues that could ideally impact that decision making. We targeted that full group, and then when we went back after phase 2 and measured the performance of it, we were able to see some really promising results. The group that had a circle of influence saw a lift around different types of engagement rates across display campaigns, native as well as online videos. It was really exciting for us to see that yes, these are individuals that are engaging more, ideally because their circles of influence have actually engaged them. As we were finishing up phase 2, we went over with Chrystie and Taryn and the team all the information in the QBR where we were able to see some pretty cool things. Can you share maybe some of the findings we had?
Yeah, what we've seen is we were able to get a lot of really interesting insights on both those people with circles of influence and those people without, and understand the differences there. And it's helped us make decisions as we move forward with the campaign, not only for the media aspects of the campaign, but certainly for creative, for maybe some content that we're surrounding based on these topics. So some of the things we definitely saw some similarities between both of the audiences, which was much encouraging. At the end of the day, we're targeting the same people in some ways, right? People with those careers, with people in those audiences. So we were happy to see there were similarities that we can universally use as we develop additional assets for the campaign. But we also saw some key differences. We saw with those with a circle of influence really were displaying more life transition signals. They were looking at things, as I mentioned before, things like maybe moving or higher education, looking for opportunities to advance their career. They were looking at some of those specific things. Whereas those without the circle of influence tended to be more values-driven, more interested in sort of social aspects, lifestyles, a little bit more independent. So as we move forward, we're going to be able to target this messaging that is most relevant to each of those audiences, based on some of the findings we found here. In addition to that, the great news was, overall, we saw higher intent to move and higher interest in moving to Ohio from both audiences. We saw a lift in both cases, so we know we're targeting the right people and with the right message. What was really exciting was with the circles of influence, and again, testing this, we didn't know exactly what we were going to find, but we did see that those with the circle of influence had twice as high interest in moving to Ohio. So this is something as we move into phase 3 in future campaigns, we are able to use this information to help make some decisions on a lot of different pieces and parts of our campaign as we continue to move into the future. So.
Absolutely. And I think you guys also saw something really interesting with a group that didn't have a circle of influence, right? There are certain values like independence that tend to be high indexing.
Yes.
Were you guys able to use that?
Yeah, yes. And I think, from the very beginning, we often do, we had sort of demographic information about these audiences. We knew our focus was sort of this maybe 20 to 25 to 45-year-old audience. Once they get past that, often they're more established, they may have kids in school, they're less likely to make a big move like this. So we kind of had that demographic, and I think what we're seeing with some of the circles of influence and not circles of influence is sort of a breakdown of even those ages, right? That younger part of that audience is a little more independent. They don't maybe have as many things tying them down to where they're at currently, and that started to show up here. Those were things we thought we knew, but we didn't have confirmation of it. what can we learn from that, and how can we continue to evolve our campaigns and programs to just make them work harder and better, with every dollar our clients are putting in our hands.
Absolutely. And I think what was really funny was that in hindsight, we're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
Right.
But we didn't think we're like, oh, I don't know what that audience is about, where if we can't find people that they oftentimes are engaging with in their circles of influence, the independence totally makes sense. Exactly. And then that's how we can influence them quite differently.
Yep. Yeah. And it really has. We are, as we move forward with the campaign this fall, we are really launching a whole brand and campaign messaging. And I think when you see it, you'll see some of these things potentially influence some of those decisions. So.
Yep, I love it. And because we did this before we even knew this was happening.
Exactly.
So a lot of alignment there.
For sure.
The next one we wanted to really talk about is our leading indicators, where we wanted to see how far along are we actually moving people down their journeys to move to Ohio. So what we did is we looked at site visitors in the overall website, and then we looked at week over week before they decided to make that event to actually come to the website, because that's a pretty strong signal. If you're on the website, pretty interesting, you're engaged. And so what we looked at is certain patterns in the data. Do we see significant increases over a longer period of time or a shorter period of time? And we're able to curate, here are the signals that we think are most impactful. And then what we've done is create an agent to interpret what each one of those signals means back to the brand. What we thought was particularly interesting is starting to validate some of the research that you guys are doing, right?
Exactly. We, again, you can see here, new movers was a key audience that we were seeing come to the site. That's great validation for everything that we're doing, and great information for the client. And like I said, this intelligence that we're gathering is hard to come by in a lot of ways, because we know everybody's moving so fast. Activities happen. So again, even research that we're doing, sometimes it's behind the curve a little bit, and this helps us just again validate some of the things we found in research are actually happening in real time. People are actually acting and engaging with our campaign and coming to the website, and it's something as we continue to move forward, we're leveraging this to help us think about maybe some content alignments that we do, because now we can see what are some of the things they were interested in before they ever came to our site. How do we show up more often in that type of content or in that type of environment? So that's something we're leveraging. And again, this is a campaign with results that are long term. We don't expect after 6 months of a campaign we're going to see this influx of people moving to the state of Ohio. It would be great, but we know that this is a longer term journey that we're hoping to establish very early on. And so as we start moving into these future campaigns, we are going to move some of our efforts to more mid to lower funnel, where we've really been at top of funnel, and we'll continue to need to be there. But how do we keep kind of driving people down? And again, some of these things can help us focus some of the things that we've been able to carry to the website, and what type of content needs to show up on the website based on what people are looking for, and really marry that back to the campaign elements, and even specific creative units, and be able to say, like, if people are engaging with this, we see that mortgages is something they've been looking at. So we know on the website something about affordability, and like some of those things might be really valuable. Whereas maybe somebody else or another group is focused more on looking at schools or looking at education, or for themselves. One of the things I think that's been really interesting that we found has been that a lot of people are not just interested. I think a big thing about moving right now, we have the job available today. That's really important. But a lot of people want to make sure that there's career growth.
Yes.
It's not just today, it's about the future as well. So again, when we start to see that those are things that are things they've researched, things they've been searching, things they've been looking for, that we can again highlight all of the higher education opportunities within the state, or all of the other businesses that maybe you start here, but did you know Nationwide Insurance is in Columbus, Ohio. Did you know Sherwin-Williams is in Cleveland? Do you know there's a lot of misperception about Ohio that we're able to start to help people see beyond the very specific today action too.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's been so exciting to partner with you guys is that you're always thinking about new ideas and innovations that you guys want to talk about. And I think that really brings us to what makes this particularly powerful. I think there's three key things around this where we're bringing the intelligence forward. You guys are willing to test out that new intelligence. You're innovating with us. You're challenging us to think about the next best thing and how can we actually innovate. And the final thing is really around evolving together, because things are changing consistently. We're always bringing you guys new ideas. We've talked to you guys about generative engine optimization. That's probably going to be our next frontier together, but evolving together as the industry evolves as well. So thank you, Chrystie.
Yes,
thank you
thank
guys. We really appreciate your partnership and love all the work we're doing together.
Thank you.